Ahoy! What's going on? Okay, so I've got a script. I wanted to do this one particularly staring at the camera because this is kind of a more personal aspect, but it could be wildly contrarian to do it while I also bring up my phone because I'm going to be reading off a script I wrote for this particular subject. So it's not that I'm bored, I just want to make sure I stay on point and don't go on any needless rambles. Okay, the phone's coming up. Here we go. For a few months, I've been having doubts about my approach to making videos. I want to articulate them here, both to be transparent to you viewers watching videos from this channel, and to hopefully help someone who might be going through a similar feeling. Here's a time code to skip to if you want to hear the main gist about what the plan is. I'm going to spend this video talking about where I'm coming from to get to this conclusion. With that said, let's rock and roll. One of the prime reasons I wanted to make videos was to express myself, but also it was to be on the other side of the curtain labeled as YouTuber or content creator. An independent form of production that allowed for an unprecedented level of creative freedom, focused on whatever you were passionate about. There were plenty of subsections to check out, but the part about YouTube I thought was so cool and interesting was the personal aspect. It allowed for a more intimate medium of entertainment compared to television because most of the time it was made by one person. I wasn't much of a vlog guy myself, though I got the appeal, but I was a fan of watching people talk about games or playing them, then moving on to video essays or retrospectives of games. There was something so awesome in people articulating artistic merits about a medium you cared about, going into detail and the what or why that made something interesting rather than, I like it because I like it. Like, break out the shovel, dig deeper, man, it's possible. So after years of watching this kind of stuff, I started thinking, this is pretty sweet. I'm roughly in my mid-teens at this point, and I'm thinking about how cool the perks of making videos would be. A fan base that adored me, cool internet friends, fan art, letters articulating their heartfelt passion for what I make, making sweet stacks and going to conventions, hosting a panel centered around moi, getting to play hot new releases before they come out to the public, doing those cool launch events, having a bunch of followers, enough to have people reach out and want to talk to connect with you. Being the timid sort made me feel like that was the ideal way for people to like me. And as I got older, additional ideas started to get in. What's that? A beautiful cosplayer who's my age and likes my sense of humor reached out to me on Instagram DMs and wants to talk about our favorite Zelda games? Well, who am I to refuse such a polite request? Another surprise. Super Eyepatch Wolf wants to bring me on Let's Fight a Boss? I'm going to Ireland? Well, I'll pack my bags. This just in. Nakey Jakey, also known as the Naked Jacob, wants someone to sidecar his videos as the Kettleball Gamer, and I'm his top choice? Never fear. I'm loading up my Amazon cart as we speak. That's incredibly goofy, right? I mean, come on, dude. I'm smirking at how ridiculous this sounds. It totally was, but it was crazy in the way you laugh at when you say it out loud. A real like that. But if the stars aligned, you would totally commit to it. And I think a lot of that was because as a teenager, this was the bee's knees, man. Like, YouTube was the place where you could talk about games and it was dope. Compared to a lot of my friends who were into conventional multiplayer-focused shooters, there weren't a lot of people I could talk to with topics like, man, that game Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door is sick, right? So after many years of sitting on the idea, I figured, let's give it a shot, but curb our expectations here. I picked the channel name Pollymacho because it was unique, and every time I tried saying it out loud, I would smile and laugh at how ridiculous it sounded. I went into this for fun and hoping for the best case scenario, a portion of what I was originally aspiring for. Make enough money to make it a career, meet cool and interesting people, and personally, I'm a Wind Waker fan myself. The Chew Jelly Juice Shop was a vibe and I love it. And for a couple of years, I was having a great time. I'm getting better at making videos, I'm starting to figure out a format I enjoy, and slowly but ever so surely, I was getting more views and subscribers. I should stress, I was also watching a bunch of YouTube while this was going on, which led to the first issue. The comparison game. You know the racket. It sounds fun with game in the title. If you've played it, you may remember that you will lose every time. If you pay attention to view counts, subscribers, or comments of other people's videos long enough, most of the time, you'll be met with feeling really insecure about yourself and what you make. People make videos and channels for different reasons, and a problem with making one around a passion is that when it doesn't work out, as in a video doesn't get a lot of views, while you're watching others do the same and succeed, it's very easy to feel that as a reflection of your self-worth. If people don't engage with it, it's because I'm not passionate or authentic enough to be worth listening to. This is a mindset that will only bum you out. Avoid it like the plague and keep some perspective here. People talk about the algorithm like an unknowable force, and for good reason. It's constantly changing and tweaking what gets views and what doesn't. What's worked in the past isn't always going to be the thing that works now. The advice you're usually told is to make this work for you. Make as many videos as you can as long as possible. Keep a consistent schedule. Engage your viewers and make sure that watch time goes up. Make a good title and a clickable thumbnail. Keep doing this until you make it, and then do it some more. I don't really rock with this advice. One, because of how vague and general it is. If something doesn't work, there is always a scapegoat of what you should have done. If this one doesn't get views, it's because your title wasn't very good. That thumbnail wasn't very clickable. Or just make more content. And then there's the second part. The more you earnestly cling on to this approach, the more you lose your original intention, your unique perspective and approach to creating in the name of succeeding by standards that are impossible to replicate or fully understand. And watching other videos just makes this worse. Oftentimes you'll get recommended what's popular. Keep in mind, these things that get really popular are often very small percentage. But if you spend a lot of your time watching videos, you will be bombarded with the works of people more successful than you are, making you feel like you are the living failure boss in Bloodborne, but there's only one. Take a look in the mirror. Anything has the potential to get big, and it will drive you mad trying to figure out if there's a trick to making it happen. One minute, you'll see one do it with a sincere and genuine passion for the subject. Another with a vitriolic takedown of a person playing to a particular group. Another will look like a generic thing you've seen a dozen times, or even using a popular meme for the thumbnail. If all these varying things succeed, what does that say about what I've made? And one of the most surreal parts, if you ever have a video do well, you can't really pin down what it was that made it succeed. Like my Termina video did insane numbers, but I really couldn't tell you what caused it besides being in the right place at the right time. I approached that video very similar to other ones I made, and those don't always have huge view counts compared to that. All while this is going down, I begin to realize the second issue. So when I was younger, I got invited to play airsoft in a friend's backyard. Before the match began, my team was squatting in the trees, hoping to surprise our buddy wielding a Desert Eagle behind the garbage can with the scratched lettering. I remember the one other time I played, airsoft BBs hurt. They were the plastic kind, but really stung. So then I got this idea I thought was brilliant as I'm camping in the trees. If I shoot myself, it's gonna hurt way more than if someone else does it. So as the match begins, I pump the slide, point it directly into my right thigh, and pull the trigger. The BB makes a smashing connection with my leg as I curl my hand into a fist and start expressing my pain kinetically, with said fist pressing into the soil repeatedly. Naturally, my friends look to me like I'm a tactical genius, a real Alexander the Great, while explaining my logic as I'm curled onto the uneven ground, wincing in pain. And ultimately it worked. The point-blank thigh shot was way more painful than anything else in that game. Why am I telling you this story? I thought you were keeping this video focused, man. Ah, my dear viewer. For you see, I bring this up to show I have a habit of shooting myself in the foot or thigh. And I'm doing it again. And I want to stress that I'm about to say my thoughts. I don't intend to speak for other people. I'm just expressing my own attitudes and concerns here. Because my second point is the parts that initially got me into this when I was a teenager, the perks that I figured would be hard-earned rewards for my success, the attention, the fame, the love, etc., looked at from a different angle and with the help of age and being grounded, kinda sucks. It's ultimately self-serving in a way I don't see as justifiable. I'm talking about really leaning into parasocial relationships for success. For those new to the idea, parasocial relationships are often one-sided affairs where a person invests a lot of time and effort into another who doesn't know them at all. This is very common with mainstream or internet celebrities. By themselves, they aren't the worst. When people are on the same page, they can be a-okay. I'm sure you've got some affinities with people you like just as I did. In fact, I made a whole video about my personal experience of it with Super Eyepatch Wolf, charted over the years and with the first video I watched to realizing there was no relationship there, and then deciding to make a video myself and saying thank you for the good times that got me to that point. If you ever watch it, it'll destroy my chances of seeming like a cool guy who's got everything together, but it's a sincere message and that's the price I'm willing to pay to express it. My particular issue with creators and the parasocial relationships that form is having your cake and eating it too. Creators are willingly providing a service, videos, art, or whatever their focus is, and viewers are enjoying that particular thing. perfectly fine. What bothers me is that people are naturally going to get attached to those they like and spend a lot of time with, even virtually, right? So they are more likely to do things for people they like rather than take a chance on a stranger. As a fellow member of Generation Z, I certainly struggled making connections with others. I spent a lot of time watching YouTube videos instead of putting myself out there socially. In fact, one of the reasons, and I am well aware how stupid this is going to sound, I had that fantasy of getting a message saying, "Hey babe, what's your favorite Zelda game?" because I thought that was the only plausible way to meet women my age who had similar interests. Like, that's pitiful in a funny way. Like, I felt like the only way to form those connections was through the internet, because what was in front of me wasn't ideal. It wasn't just entertainment, it was escapism that I viewed as a solution. But it's important to consider that even with a story like that, I'm one of the luckier ones. I got some friend groups I'm so thankful to be a part of, occasionally doing that magical thing where you meet some of your friends' friends and then holy shit, you also like insert thing? Dude, let's go. I started to get first-hand experience that a lot of the good stuff, a lot of the things I ultimately wanted could be achieved offline. And most importantly, they're not just about you. You don't need a certain status to get it. You share the good company you're a part of. That sounds like an obvious thing, especially so if you're older than I am. But for the kids growing up, or those who aren't socially adjusted, who are being born into this stuff, who are forming these relationships with internet celebrities who do not care about you besides the value you bring, this could be a foreign concept, and that's horrible. I can only imagine now, a popular creator making a genuine face in the thumbnail with a title like, "We gotta talk about ... Maybe something like this. Or, yeah. The video begins with, "Hey man, I just want to say, while I'm really glad you support what I do, I'm not your friend, and I can't be." A perfectly fine message. They continue. With that said, be sure to check out this week's sponsor, Shabattlebingus. I also got a Twitter, X account, so be sure to follow that too to get my opinions in real time. I also have an Instagram where I post photos of how sweet my life is, and the Patreon. For a few bucks a month, you can support the show and join our exclusive Discord server where we have a community dedicated to me. And be sure to stay tuned for the regularly scheduled Twitch streams where we're a couple of buds hanging out as I earn money and feel socially validated with the chat begging for my attention. And don't forget the VODs channel where we post gameplay and shorts from the Twitch streams. My editors sure make fun edits there. But yeah guys, I'm not your friend. How could you even reach that conclusion? Bro, you're a bot. Go touch grass. With no self-awareness and not realizing the irony in that statement. Like, what? That's as insane as my initial incentive to make videos. Am I the only one who finds that hypocritical? Like, yeah dude, we're not friends, and I'm not going to keep a healthy distance between audience and creator, and instead blur the lines to a tremendous degree where I encourage you to engage with multiple different avenues to lead to me personally. I can imagine someone saying, well that's just what you need to do to make this a career. But a statement like that is what I'm getting at. Besides a short-term success, I think it's bad for everyone. It's bad for the audience that gets attached to them, and the creator to get their perception so warped by the constant barrage of both love and hatred expressed at them. What I'm trying to get at is that the quest to make content creation a job, the goal is to get as much of your audience's time and attention as possible. It's about getting them engaged with your stuff to keep the watch time going up to get more money. You're numerically incentivized to do this in whatever way works. Obnoxious clickbait, drama, playing to a particular group, using topical memes, conveying yourself as relatable but not authentic, making as much content as possible and as quickly as possible. I think there's a firm difference between a workmanlike approach to providing a particular service, drawing from a personal aspect and that's all, and I could totally get a person using a Patreon with that mindset, with the audience contributing to the craft they make, a willing donation of funds providing for that service they enjoy and get value out of. Then there's doing that, and then using other avenues to highlight the creator. It's not about what they make or the service they perform, it's about them as a person. I'm well aware that's a very pessimistic way of looking at parasocial relationships from the perspective of a content creator, but I feel it's necessary to articulate that, because I feel a cognitive dissonance when I make videos. I make them to express myself and to share things I find interesting with curious viewers. But I also have self-interest in getting ad revenue and to have more people watching, because if I make more, that will lead to more views, which means more success financially and more eyes on what I make, which could lead to other opportunities and connections. And while that sounds really cool on the surface, it's predicated on the people who take the time to watch what I make, and I feel really guilty about that. It's one of the reasons I haven't started a Patreon, because the time you spend watching is enough. There's no need to throw money on top of it. In this economy, get out of here. It's better spent taking care of your own concerns. I'm doing this because I want to do it, and I'll stop when I don't. And then I've started to think about other parts that I couldn't find a good reason for. Like, wait a minute. As cool as getting review codes would be, wouldn't getting a new release before it comes out lead to a conflict of interest for maintaining a personal perspective when talking about a game for fear of not getting another free code? Damn, I can't do that again. Same with going to these game release bootcamp things. You have this super awesome experience that basically has you be in the game's PR. Oh, god damn it, I can't do that either. Oh man. I started to realize that most of the really cool incentives to do this are really incompatible with what I want to do, and that kind of bummed me out. The likelihood of those occurring would be insanely small, but now if the opportunity presented itself, I don't think it would be a good idea for me. I think just churning stuff out in the name of numerical success without a concern for the quality or authenticity is disrespectful to an audience. It wastes their time, and it's not there to serve them. It's purely to serve the creator. But the part that's insane is that the numerical success as a content creator, that's the winning strategy. It's throwing as much quantity as possible in hopes that something takes off, because it's not about making one kick-ass video that gives you the satisfaction of, man, that was so good, after you finish and move on. It's about keeping you watching to make the numbers go up. And the hard pill to swallow is that the part I loved about YouTube, the independent spirit that allowed for a more personal form of entertainment, where anyone can create, those aren't things that get pushed. It's about doing what everybody else is doing instead of trying new things, because those are unpredictable and aren't safe bets. It's hiring editors to do the work for you, or producers or teams to shift through your social media accounts, or a content model of looking at things posted on popular Reddit pages, making brand deals and sponsorships, or just watching other people's videos who spend a lot of time editing and creating them without adding anything of substance to them. I think in the attempt to make content creation a business, we're willingly turning YouTube into a place where it's not about creativity or making something for the love of it existing, rather slowly outsourcing the work because the way it's set up as a business, that's what it takes to succeed. It's taking the personality out of you and you're left with tube, a long hollow cylinder of metal, plastic, glass, etc. for holding or transporting something, or as defined in US slang, television. And on that note, I want to talk about making videos. Welcome to the back of the kitchen where I make the secret sauce. Grab an apron. I love making videos. I love playing video games. But I realized trying to incorporate both into a career, it turned what I love doing into a transaction. I have this thought process when I'm playing games that kind of sucks. It's not playing to enjoy them, or getting immersed or engaging with the world it sets up for as long as possible, or the most crucial, to have fun. I'm playing them for the purpose of having a subject to talk about in a new video. I'll still have bursts of excitement while recording footage for a playthrough, but I'll often feel two modes I'll be swapping between constantly. One, I'm going too slow, so I need to pick up my pace and make a video in time. And the other is I'm going too fast, so I need to slow down so I can get as much as possible out of it. I reached a point where I would look up playtimes for games to know how many hours I would need to dedicate to seeing it through, because I needed to beat a game before I felt qualified enough to talk about it and recommend it. And I would dread games with huge playtimes because I would wonder if I'd be able to make a video that month. In my quest to keep a constant schedule, I made the process of making videos way more stressful than I needed to. I felt really insecure that I wasn't making one a week, so I needed to make sure that at least once a month, and it had to be great to make up for it. And if it didn't do well, then I had to do better next time. Perhaps a better thumbnail or a better title. And then I reached this point that while I enjoyed my videos, I made them, how could I not, I felt like I was just making the same one over and over again, just with a different subject. They felt interchangeable. And that's not a great feeling with creativity. And I very much understand it from an audience's perspective. They want a consistent form of entertainment. It could be like a comfort watch or something to get them through a boring shift at work or something. Whatever it is, a feeling of consistency can be cool. So as I'm starting to feel this way, I get disillusioned with being a content creator, I start feeling burned out with my videos, I'm feeling disheartened about wanting to pursue this in the first place, and around March, I get sick. One of the greatest gifts I could have received. Because when I clung onto the living room couch with a trash can filled with snot-covered tissues next to me, I had my Joy-Con saddled in the game grip as I'm playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I tried playing a few years ago and hopped off at around the 11-hour mark. I wasn't feeling the combat, the open world, the plot felt like a huge commitment, and with an average duration of 62 hours of playtime to see the end, I abandoned ship. But when I was watching videos of people who were really passionate about JRPGs, smaller channels made me go, damn, this is great. I started to think, why not? I wasn't feeling hot and this might be a great way to pass the time. So I loaded up and at around the 20-hour mark, it clicks. I'm starting to get the combat. I'm grabbing collectibles like James Woods in the Family Guy episode with the candy. I'm loving this cast. Lance is my boy, Uni's the boss, they bring me joy. I got a floss. I had a wonderful time, way more than I thought I would. I'm having so much fun that maybe I should make a video about it. So I decided to wrap the game up before playing Dragon's Dogma 2 that was coming out that month. I pre-ordered the game and began to consider my time with Xenoblade 3 to be over, and like an overzealous indulger of committing many acts of darkness with as many as possible, I was looking toward the next game while I had a good thing with the one right in front of me. Then I got an email. My pre-order was refunded. I accidentally ordered a copy for the wrong region. At first I thought, bummer, time to order it again. But then I started thinking of this particular idea the author Mark Manson talked about. What if it was a gift? It's basically reframing an experience to focus on the positive note, a surprise present rather than a guaranteed annoyance. So I flipped it. What if this refund for Dragon's Dogma 2 was a gift? What if it was an opportunity to slow down and really savor Xenoblade Chronicles 3? So that's exactly what I did. I finished the game at around 92 hours and was very satisfied. And the game's theme about gazing toward the future in the midst of uncertainty hit just right. It was incredible. One-of-a-kind experience that reminded me of how amazing games can be. I don't think I'll ever do a full playthrough again, but I'm grateful I got to experience it that way. And I wouldn't have been able to if I rushed the experience. I got the most out of it when I slowed down, when I wasn't thinking about what incentives I could get talking about the game, then staying quiet and listening to what I had to say. So here's what I want to do. Welcome back, time traveler. I'm going to slow down making videos. I'm not going to set a deadline for a video a month anymore. It puts unnecessary pressure on what I want to do. I'll post release dates in the channel's community tab when they're nearing completion. Depending on the subject, it's going to vary. But I want to take my time with games and make doing this as sustainable and as fun as possible. A part of me is worried I'm killing momentum for channel growth and views for doing this. There's a reason I didn't make this video sooner, that if I did, I was really letting go of the idea of making this a career. That's a solid possibility. But I think I already decided a while ago. Now it's just ripping off the band-aid or shooting the BB in the thigh. Life is what's occurring right now, and I want to make that life as enjoyable as possible. And one of the ways to do that is to make videos because I want to do it, at a pace that works for me until I don't anymore. I don't control how people view what I make. All I can control is what I do. And I would rather make videos that excite me in whatever nonsensical or impractical way from a business perspective that sounds fun, and take my time with the subjects I talk about. That doesn't mean I'll get everything right, but I'll be as careful as I can be. Because I think that's my way of dealing with the dissonance of content creation. All I can do is make videos I had fun making and want to share. Watch, ignore, comment, do as you will. There's a lot of good stuff out there, both on the internet and in the world. Make the most of what you got. Anything else that comes after that, money, attention, praise, on the border cafe style chips, that's all extra and optional. Thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourself.